Welcome to my podcast, What the Fuck, Spirit. If you made it past that name, this is going to be the podcast for you. This is going to be a no holds barred, no bullshit, open and honest conversation with Maria Leggett, and that's me, about all things spiritual. It's time to begin talking in an open and honest way about what spirituality is and what it is not. We're going to discuss all things woo-woo, witchcraft, spiritual, queer spirituality, medium versus psychic, energy healing, light work, shadow work, and any other bullshit that people want you to believe because it keeps them comfortable. It is time for you to grow. Let's go. So it's been a year since I have done a podcast. And you know what's interesting is, in my mind, for some reason, I felt like my podcast needed to be at least a half an hour long, maybe even an hour long. And the truth of the matter is, podcasts should probably only be somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes long because people's attention span isn't all that long all the time. And what gave me that permission is the amazing Liz Wilcox, who runs EMM. It is email marketing. And oh crap, I can't remember what the second M is for. But Liz Wilcox, if you own your own business and you are struggling with getting emails out to people, Liz Wilcox is your chick. She is who you want. If you go to lizwilcox.com, you're going to find out all the information about her. She gave me permission. It's not like she said it to me, right? She releases podcasts, and sometimes hers are 10 minutes, sometimes they're 15 minutes. But it's all little snippets of shit that I need to hear. Doesn't mean I always act on it, right? But it means that it's always there for me. And so if you own your own business, go look at Liz Wilcox. She's going to help you to get your shit together. Even though I don't always have my shit together, but that's not her fault. That's just me being me. So one of the things I want to talk about today is you being you. The reason why I haven't done my podcast in a year is that I have set all these expectations on myself for, here's who you need to be, Shell. Here's who you need to be to show up. You need to have all this information. You need to have this whole big schedule, blah, 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 blah. And to be honest with you, I was a great project manager while I was working for someone else. And I lived my life by Excel spreadsheets and deadlines and all these other things because that's what that business needed. And that's who I was in that space. And now I'm looking at it going, I'm really not that organized. So I don't know how the hell I did all that marketing and deadline shit for over 30 years because, I do know. Oh, that's interesting. So as I'm sitting here talking, I can hear Spirit like downloading information in my head. And it was because I had this massive need to control. I needed to control things and I could hold people accountable, right? So it's why when I worked on Bloomberg Magazine, and I may wind up blooping out the name of the magazine because I don't need it getting picked up that I work there. But actually, I just don't give a fuck. It is what it is. I worked there for 15 years, but my need to control because of my having been molested and my having been, just horrible things happening to me, I needed to control things, and being a project manager and keeping people on task fed into my trigger of I need to control. So it's no wonder why I raised up through the ranks, right? Because I was a great Nazi. I really was. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I was kind of a bitch about it. Not kind of. I was a bitch about it. And so it's no surprise to me that a lot of my coworkers didn't like me. I was very abrupt and, I talk the way that I talk and I say fuck all the time and blah, blah, blah. And it's so interesting to me because I'm so different now, right? And so I don't have this need to control things. I have just opened up and released to Spirit and said, okay, what do I need to do? How is this going to happen? So a lot of my classes are all channeled and I do shit at the last minute because that's just who I am. By nature, I am a procrastinator. And it's interesting because I am a procrastinator because I have ADHD. I will wait until the very last minute to do something because there's always something else that needs to be done first. And so me looking at this and saying, okay, you have to have a controlled year of content, right? A controlled month to whatever it is. Me being the overachiever when I was younger, it was, you have to have a year's worth of content to do all these things. And I did really well at first with having guests lined up and everything else, because I thought that that's what people would want. All these guests, all these things. And I think the truth of the matter is people just want to know me. They want to know my life. They want to know the shit that I've been through. And I mean the people like you, right? You are listening to this. And if you are listening to this, you want to know more about me. You want to know more about how I got to this place. And if I have guests, that's great. And I will have guests on again, because it's not like that's ever going to go away. But I really want to get back into this because I have a voice and I need to start using it, and I need to start moving forward and doing things because, I've struggled with saying this for a really long time. But the truth is, I'm a really damn good medium. I open up to spirit and I just allow things to flood through. And I will forever be a life learner. I will forever be learning how spirit works. I will forever be opening up to spirit and helping and teaching and doing, because my path is to be of service to here on this earth. That is why I am here. That is my life path and why I was born. And so I'm recognizing through all of this that it doesn't mean that I have to be perfect. There's this expectation that we have to be perfect. And if you are a female, whether you are a chosen female or a born female, you automatically, because all women, I don't care how you became a woman, all women carry this need to be perfect. We're trying to attract the perfect partner. We're trying to attract the perfect job. We're trying to do the perfect things because this is a shit that we were groomed to believe. And even as I'm recording this, I can hear my husband's lawnmower going. So if you can hear the lawnmower, this is my life, right? I'm trying to do something for my business and life goes on around me. So I apologize if you hear the lawnmower, but that's my life. And there's the ADHD squirrel. So now I have to remember where I was. Okay, so this is how my ADHD works. I literally had to stop what I was recording, go back and listen to it so I could remember where I was. ADHD at its best. So if you have it, you totally understand where I'm coming from. If you don't, this is what it's like. We squirrel, we forget. It's not that things weren't important. It's that we literally just went off on a tangent. So anyway, we are literally groomed. Women are groomed to be pleasing, to do things for other people. And whether it was, shut up and be quiet and sit there and be nice, or don't be too much, don't be too this, don't be too that. And that has been me my whole life. And so we have been groomed to please people. And because of that, it has put me at a place where I can sit here and go, okay, well, what if this podcast isn't, a half an hour? Are people going to be mad? What if I do this? Or am I going to, it's all about pleasing you, pleasing the listener. That's what I do. I do this to myself and I'm like, okay, well, they're not going to like this and they're not going to like that. And I have to remind myself, this is why I do this. I do this podcast for me. I do this so that I can share what I have been through and you can realize that you're not alone. This is how I am of service to you, right? I share my shit. I share my junk so that you're not alone. And instead, I keep it all inside because I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you and I'm afraid that I'm going to do something that's going to upset you instead of looking at what's going to please me. So I'm going to move forward with this amazing podcast because I'm going to start talking about things that just come to my mind that I think that maybe you might be interested in. And if not, you'll skip this one. Maybe you'll listen to another one, or maybe you'll just drop out altogether because maybe I'm just not the teacher for you, or you don't like the fact that I cuss. And if you don't, it's all right. Fuck it. This is just who I am. So I am not going to be concerned anymore, right? It is that whole imposter syndrome. Well, who am I to do this? Who am I to do that? Coupled with the ADHD, coupled with the people pleasing, coupled with all this trauma. And quite honestly, fuck it all. I am so done with trying to please everybody else because there is always somebody I am not going to please. There is always somebody who's going to be pissed off at me, somebody who's going to do all the things, whatever. It is what it is, right? So I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to start talking about things that are important to me. And hopefully they are important to you as well. And that you're going to share in my joy and delight of being back in the podcast. So That being said, I want to talk about my very first experience with spirit. I may have talked about it in earlier episodes, which would have been like a year or two ago, and I can't remember. So if you're a new listener, listen, great. You're getting the new stories. If you've already listened to all my other episodes, then guess what? You're getting a repeat because I don't remember and I'm not going to go listen to them all to see. So here we go. When I was 12 years old, all right, 1982. Yes, I was 12 years old in 1982. It was right before my 13th birthday. I was born in 1969 for anybody who's doing the math. So in February of 1982, I was laying in bed and I was extremely close to my papa while he was alive. My papa was like my knight in shining armor. This man could do no wrong in my eyes. My granny, she could do wrong, but my papa, none. He would laugh with me and he would tell me jokes and he would let me sit on his lap and he would hug me and he never chastised me. And so looking back and knowing the true stories about my grandfather when he was younger and how he was not a good dad and he was, he drank a lot and he ran around on my grandmother and all these things. It was very shocking to me to find all this out because that is not the man that I knew. And I think it's great, right? Because I am a different grandmother. This is how I squirrel, right? I'm a different grandmother than I was a mom. And my grandkids call me Mimi. So I'm definitely a different Mimi than I was a mom. And so my grandkids have a very different version of me than my children did. But anyway, so back to the whole point of the story from the ADHD point of view. I was super close to him and I loved him so much. And in 1980, he was diagnosed with cancer and he was sick and not doing well. And I was miserable finding out that my grandfather was sick. And I remember going to visit him when he had to do physical therapy and he didn't want to do it for a multitude of reasons. And I would stand in the driveway and I would say, Papa, come walk to me. And he would actually do it. And so I was so grateful that this stubborn old man who was, 70, I think at the point, would walk toward me and would allow me to be a part of his recovery. That was really special because he was a man's man, right? And I don't think he wanted me to see him as less than a man. So he was in a wheelchair or a walker because he'd had cancer and he'd had a colostomy and he was just not doing as well as he could have been. But I still wanted to see him. I still wanted to go and be with him because he was my papa, man. He was my everything, right? So this is fast forwarding to the night that he died. It was February of 1982 and I'm laying in bed and it was probably, I want to say 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And all of a sudden my bedroom light flips on and my grandfather is sitting on my bed and like I could literally feel his weight on the mattress. And I sat up and I looked at him and I said, Papa, what are you doing here? I thought you were in the hospital. And he said, I'm not at the hospital anymore, and I came to tell you goodbye. I wanted you to know how much I loved you, and I want you to know, and he called me by my nickname, which I never tell anybody because I wait for one day a medium might give me that nickname. So he called me by my nickname, and he said, I want you to know that I will be a guardian angel for you for the rest of your life. And I could smell his pipe smoke while he was sitting with me. And when I saw him, he was sitting in his khaki pants and his white sneakers with his brace on his leg because he'd had a stroke. So he had a brace on his leg and he had on some kind of a t-shirt and his gray sweater, his gray cardigan sweater. And he said, I want you to know that I love you and I'll always be your guardian angel. And he hugged me and he said, it's time for me to go. And I knew that meant that he had died. And then the next thing was I felt the weight lift up off of my bed. My light went out and I went back to sleep. And a couple of hours later, my brother came and knocked on my door. And I woke up and said, what? And he said, I have something to tell you. I said, I know Papa's dead. He goes, how do you know that? And I said, because he came and told me. And he's like, well, that's ridiculous. And so in that moment, I learned to keep that kind of stuff quiet. Now, it's not like I had those experiences all the time, because people will say, oh, I've been a medium since I was a kid. No. When I was a kid, like, that was the most profound experience I had, and I was 12, and it was because it was my papa, man. He was my life. And I think he knew that I would be traumatized if he didn't come and say goodbye, because I was abandoned by my dad when I was a kid. And he knew that I would be traumatized, and he did not want me to feel like I was abandoned. And so he used the abilities that I were all born with so that he could come and say goodbye to me. And I have been grateful for that my entire life, because I knew that he had said goodbye to me. And I had a really hard time grieving after he passed away, because he'd come to me, he'd said goodbye, I'd gotten to see him, but it took months to allow that to set in, because I was in denial, right? We all know all the different stages of grief, and we'll talk about that in another episode, but we have all these different stages of grief, and I was in denial for a very, very long time. I was only 12. I was a kid, right? I was an absolute kid. But I was smart enough to manipulate my teachers to say, oh, my papa just died. Can I have more time on my research paper? Like, I was not an idiot. I knew what to do. And it all worked, which is great. And I still feel kind of guilty about that 40 years later, or 50 years later, right? 40, I don't know, whatever. I'm definitely not 62. So anyway, you do the math. And I just am grateful for that extreme, profound experience. And I know that a lot of you listeners have also had extreme, profound experiences. And if we aren't friends and you haven't already shared them with me, hit me up, man. I want to hear what you have to say. You can email me at hello@marialeggett.com, MariaLeggett.com. And I really want to hear. I want to hear your stories. I want to know what kind of experiences you've had, because I know that we all have, right? There was it wasn't a study. Let me take that back. I had a mentor. She was one of my teachers. Her name was Reverend Elaine Thomas. She was my teacher in Lilydale, New York. And Elaine was a teacher when she was younger. She was a medium for many, many years, but she was also a teacher. And I remember her saying to me in the first year that she taught me that most children, the majority of children, have some type of paranormal experience before the age of 9. And because that was the age group that she taught and was around. And she told me that almost every single one of her students before age 9 had some type of experience with the paranormal. And then usually it starts to fade away around 4th grade. That's where you're turning 9 into 10. So by 5th grade, it's usually gone. And it's because, we're taught not to believe in these things. We're taught not to do these things, right? We are born with these abilities. And that's what we have to remember. You were born with this ability. It is not new. It is something that you were born with. And all you have to do is practice to get it there. And that is why I am here. I am here to teach you to get your abilities back. So if you would like to take classes with me, go to marialeggett.com, click on events, sign up for one of my intuition development classes, or you can sign up for Ignite Your Intuition, which used to be called Mediumship 101. And you can learn to meet your guides. You can work with your people as well. It helps to teach you how to get rid of the ego, all of the beautiful things. And this is my guilt-free sales pitch for the things that I offer. Obviously, this podcast is free. I will always have free things for people, but I also have paid classes as well. Head over to marialeggett.com, click on online learning, and look at something that might be right for you. Until next time, may you have the day you deserve.